Hey guys, just wanted to introduce you to how I like to do concrete. This is just the way I do it and how I've learned to do it. I work solo, so this works well for me, and I'll lay out how I do it. So one of the most important things is get yourself set up so that when you start mixing and pouring concrete, it runs smoothly. So you can see I've got my stand mixer here set up. I've got my concrete already set. I've already rinsed my wheelbarrow. I've got my hose set up. I've got a trash can to put the empty bags over here. I've already got a tarp down in case anything spills on the pavers. I've got my form set up. I will be doing getting the forms actually set up and screwed in and such tight before. And I've got a nice path here I can access with the wheelbarrow for shoveling in concrete here, and I can also access over here for these forms. Now I like to use the fast setting concrete mix. That way I can get on it the next day, start putting in post bases and such. You can really only do that if it's warm and if it's not near the edge of the concrete. You can drill and put in Titan HD concrete screws. If it's too close to the edge, just give it another 2 days or so, and you should be landing in the middle of your footings anyways. So my basic process is wherever my beam lines are, I find those. I string line that. I spray paint the locations of my footings. I do the calculations for footing size and footing layout. Now, if you're wondering how I got the depth and the width and all that, I do have a article on my website that explains how to calculate the footings. You can also use standard code tables. They have some code tables that you can use the joist span and the beam span and all that, and it'll give you that. But if you're a nerd like me and you want to calculate them, basically what you're doing is you're taking the tributary load of a given area, depending on how many footings and where your spacing is, and you're calculating how much live load is on that. And then for my calculations, I use 1,500 pounds per square foot soil bearing capacity, which is basically the amount of load the soil can take before it starts moving. 1,500 pounds per square foot is a conservative estimate. And then I widen the base to be able to take that amount for the calculated load that this footing will take. For our area, you also want to make sure that if you have any frost in your area, that you place the footing deep enough below the frost line that it's not going to be an issue. 18 inches in our area, and I go a little beyond and go about 20 inches. That also gives me a little bit of space for a little bit of gravel in the bottom. If you're wondering why I don't do rebar, 2 reasons. These are only going to be taking a compressive load. Rebar is not really necessary for deck footings like this. If I were going to be taking the columns up out of the ground, that would be a different story. And then rebar can also, if you're using the steel rebar, it can actually lead to early failure. If the rebar rusts, it actually expands and pops open the concrete. So, if it's not placed correctly. So if it's not necessary, it adds extra labor. I'd rather not add that cost to the customer. I mark those. I dig with an auger, and then I widen out the hole so that I can fit a 10-inch tube form for this particular project. Sometimes I go 12, depends on the project. And then I widen out the base of the footing, so I use a bell footing style. I leave the tube form up off the footing floor, usually about 8 inches. So what I'll have is a widened footing, a bell footing at the bottom, and then the tube comes up. And what that does is it limits the amount of concrete I have to use. I don't have to go 18 inches wide for the whole form, which is not necessary. Concrete can definitely take the compressive forces and transmit it down, but you do need the width at the bottom to spread out the load on the soil. And you can see on this one, this is only a 14-inch bell down on the bottom. So that helps widen out the bottom of the footing to distribute the load. Over here, I'll show you one that's wider. Over here, these were 18-inch wide at the bottom. I tossed some 3/4 crushed down there to level things out and tamp that down, make sure everything's nice and compact. Once I get those dug and I get these footing forms built and installed, these stakes, I drive the stakes down, I put the footing form in place approximately, I get it in line with the string, center of line, I drive a stake on one side, I get it tight, and I drive the stake on the other side, and that allows me to shift the form this way, that way to get the form exactly where I want it. And then I will screw from the inside with small screws into the form here, and that will fasten the tube form to my footing forms. So when I make these footing forms, one, I cut them with a skill saw, which is the easiest way I've found to get a nice clean cut. You just follow it nice and square, and it should line up. You got to be good with your eyes, but yeah. So when I make these forms, I make them just a hair tight. I measured 10 3/4 across one side, 10 and I think it was 10 3/8 or something like that. So I made these 10 5/8, and the nice thing is they fit in there nice and snug, so they don't fall through, which makes it a lot easier when you're working by yourself. You just get them down to the right spot and then screw them in. So sometimes it deforms them just a little bit out of a perfect circle, like that, but I mean, it's barely noticeable, and these are going to be under the deck. Nobody's ever going to see them. They just need to be strong and in the right locations. How I fasten these is I put 1 screw, 2 screws, 3 screws. So this will establish the level this way, and then this final screw establishes the level this way. I don't need to worry about this. I've never found it necessary. So I use these little 1.5 Simpson deck drive screws. They drive nice and fast, and that'll set my height and level the tube form so that when I'm pouring, nothing gets moved. Alright, so I've got everything set up. I've got my footing forms all placed. Everything's ready to go. I'm ready to start mixing. I would highly recommend using one of these. When you're mixing these bags, you break them open, you're going to be inhaling a lot of concrete dust. Silicosis is no fun. Your health and safety is always on you. It's your responsibility, especially if you're a solo business owner. No OSHA here. So if you're wondering when should you get a mixer versus mixing it in a wheelbarrow, my rule of thumb is somewhere around 12 bags. If it's over that, maybe 15, depending on how fit I'm feeling for the day. Mixing in a wheelbarrow is no fun. If it's anywhere close to more than, say, half a yard, 3/4 of a yard, I just get it ready mixed, truck delivered. We have a local small batch supplier, Green Dot Concrete. The cost difference is negligible, and the quality is consistent, and it's fast, and it's a lot easier on the body. So that's just how I do it. Alright guys, so I hope that helps. That's how I do concrete. It's probably a fair way for a DIYer to do it. If you're on a crew though, you'll probably take a different approach. You have multiple guys. And everybody's got their way. You got to figure out what way works best for you, and this is the way it works for me. Hope it helps.